Yun Seun dreamed about the past when he was in charge of caring for children who almost fell and pulling them so they wouldn't fall. In the dream, Seun saw how people were fighting under the drizzle and he just watched, but when the person he thought was precious started to fall, he tried to catch him. Seun's efforts were in vain. He ended up sitting in the middle of a dark boxing ring alone. He remembered Suho and Beam Suk. Seun remembered when Beam Suk said that Seun should feel what he felt, then Seun would understand. Seun also felt guilty seeing Suho in the hospital and unconscious. Seun woke up from his sleep. He looked at the clock on his cell phone which showed that it was morning. Seun sighed tiredly because since that incident he couldn't sleep, and if he did he would dream of the same thing that made him feel guilty. He even went to a psychiatrist to treat his insomnia, but when the counseling session was taking place Seun did not want to tell what dreams came to him because dreams were just dreams. The doctor asked if Seun was diligent in taking his medicine. Seun answered in a flat tone that he was taking it. The doctor saw that Seun lived in a great sense of guilt, so that his gaze was always sad, his face was gloomy, and his tone of voice was devoid of enthusiasm. The doctor wants to know about the dream, but Seun won't let anyone know about it. The doctor will assume that Seun did take his medicine, and that's what he'll tell Seun's mother later. Seun told his psychiatrist that his consultation session was over, so he had to leave. Seun came to school as usual. The students were engrossed in their own affairs. Some were bullying the nerdy student, some were just exchanging jokes in the corridor, and others were playing soccer on the field. Seun was about to pass by other students who were enjoying themselves joking in the corridor. They immediately fell silent upon seeing Seun and made way for him to pass. They talked about how Seun came to their school a year ago and was rumored to have killed someone at his old school. Even when he first entered this school, Choi Hyoman was afraid of Seun and disappeared after their first conflict when Seun moved in. Seun entered his classroom, and as soon as he arrived, everyone immediately fell silent and stopped joking. The bullies in the class immediately left, saying that Seun's arrival ruined the atmosphere and made it frightening. Seun ignored them and sat down in his seat. He buried his face in the folds of his hands. Someone accidentally bumped Seun's head with his bag. The person immediately apologized accidentally because he was in a hurry. The other students whispered that the student named Seo Juntae was in danger because he had been bothering Seun. Seun just stared at Juntae blankly, then back to his sleep. Juntae delivers milk and bread every morning to the people who order milk and bread from Juntae. The other students cheered on Juntae, who was busy delivering milk and bread in the morning. When Juntae handed a chocolate milk to a student who was chatting with friends near the window, the student got angry because Juntae had given the wrong flavor. Juntae was surprised to hear that because as far as he remembered, the student always ordered chocolate milk. The student said that he had changed his order to strawberry milk last week. Juntae immediately handed him the strawberry-flavored milk. He apologized because he got confused due to the large number of orders. The student spread his arms, asking Juntae to hug him. Juntae immediately hugged him. The student said that this time he would forgive Juntae, but if Juntae made a mistake again, he wouldn't let Juntae off. Juntae nodded awkwardly. The student whispered to remind Juntae to bring the item. Juntae nodded again. The student said iPhone, and Juntae repeated what the student said. The other students laughed at Juntae, who looked like a loser. The student then told Juntae to leave. The other students cheered for Juntae, who was busy delivering milk and bread. Juntae returned to his class after finishing. He opened the iPad to see the list of students' names along with their phone brands. On Yun Seun's name, there was no phone brand because Juntae didn't dare to ask due to the rumor that Seun should not be disturbed. Juntae also wrote a note next to Siyun's name that Siyun should not be disturbed. Siyun left the classroom and Juntae immediately followed him. He called Siyun's name on the stairs. Siyun stopped and looked at Juntae flatly. Juntae apologized for earlier and wanted to know the brand of Siyun's phone. Siyun asked for what purpose. Juntae hesitantly answered because he was just curious. Siyun walked away, ignoring Juntae. Choi Hyoman is bothering some nerdy students at school. He gives them tasks like taking iPhones. Hyoman complained because the number of phones given kept decreasing from usual, and if this continues, it will affect their business. Another nerdy student lay flat on the ground, listening to Hyoman's complaints. Juntae provided a list of students' phones with the iPhone brand. Hyoman checked it and asked why Siyun's name had "Do Not Disturb" written next to it. Juntae answered that there was a rumor circulating that Hyoman and Siyun had a conflict, so Juntae didn't dare to approach Siyun first and was afraid that if he did, there would be a problem considering the rumor that Hyoman would finish his problem with Siyun alone. Hyoman asked what the problem was. Juntae hadn't had a chance to explain further, but Hyoman was already angry. Hyoman approached Juntae and asked what Juntae meant. Juntae looked down because he realized what he said was wrong. Hyoman asked if Juntae thought he would lose to Yun Siyun. Juntae quickly shook his head and said that wasn't what he meant. Hyoman said that Juntae can protect himself now. Hyoman pulled Juntae's tie and ordered him to get into a ready position. Hyoman then slapped Juntae until his glasses flew off. Hyoman kept slapping Juntae because he was annoyed that Juntae thought Hyoman would lose to Siyun. Hyoman kept slapping him until his cheeks and lips bled. After that, Hyoman acted as if he cared about Juntae. Juntae could only remain silent and not resist. Hyoman then kicked Juntae's leg, causing him to fall. Hyoman said that he believes Juntae will be able to bring Siyun's phone. Juntae, who was in pain on the floor, could only nod. Juntae went to the teacher's room to collect the phone collection bag. The homeroom teacher handed over the bag and said that there would be no meeting today, so the students could go home directly. Juntae took the bag to the bathroom. He sat on the toilet while repeatedly saying that there was no other WI, so he had to do this. Juntae took Siyun's phone from the phone collection bag. Juntae entered the classroom and announced that there would be no meeting today, so the students could take their phones and go home. The students took their phones and Juntae returned to his seat to get ready to leave. Siyun came to the desk to take his phone when the class was quiet, but when he looked in the phone collection bag, his phone was not there. Juntae was about to leave, but Siyun called him. Siyun asked where his phone was. Juntae fell silent awkwardly and replied that it must be in that bag. Siyun replied that there was none. Juntae approached to check, and it turned out there was indeed nothing. Siyun stared straight at Juntae. Juntae was frightened by that gaze, and he was also afraid Siyun would catch him taking the phone. Juntae tried to explain that he would never take someone else's phone or steal someone's phone because he is not that kind of person, he was just bringing it from the teacher's room. Siyun observed the nervous movement of Juntae's lips. Juntae asked if Siyun understood what he meant. Siyun replied that he didn't understand at all. Juntae said that it wasn't him who took it. Siyun answered that he understand then left. Juntae was confused by Siyun's indifferent attitude. Juntae gives Siyun's phone to Hyoman. Hyoman says that Juntae should have done his job properly like this without having to wait to be beaten first. Juntae then leaves. He feels guilty for stealing Siyun's phone. Juntae sees Siyun walking up the stairs, so he approaches him to ask if he has found his phone. Siyun ignores Juntae. Juntae is confused, so he chases after Siyun. He stops in front of Siyun and explains that he feels guilty for not taking good care of her phone, so if Siyun wants to buy a new phone later he will add money. Juntae says that in a situation like this we have to think positively because there are some things that cannot be avoided. Siyun asks what is meant by unavoidable. Juntae is confused to hear that question from Siyun. Siyun asks if Juntae really thinks he doesn't know anything. Siyun says that Juntae did all this so that he could be at ease and that such an attitude is the attitude of a loser. Siyun then leaves Juntae stunned. Juntae questions whether he is really a loser. Siyun went with his mother. His mother asked if Siyun really lost his phone or just because he wanted to buy a new phone so he lost it on purpose. Siyun did not answer. Even so, his mother was happy because this was the only way she could spend time with Siyun. His mother did not know that later if Siyun studied abroad, it would be even more difficult to spend time with Siyun. His mother said that it was difficult at first but it would be fine again. That night, Siyun took sleeping pills after studying but he still could not sleep. Siyun went to the hospital to see Suho, who was still in a coma. He wrote a message to Suho's number that he couldn't sleep even though he took sleeping pills, and when he did sleep, he had dreams that made his sleep restless. Siyun questioned why Suho could sleep so well while he had trouble sleeping. Siyun also told him that a few days ago he said to his classmate was a coward when in fact the real coward was himself, who ignored everyone and hoped that everyone would not think he existed. Siyun returned to school as usual. He saw Choi Hyo-man, who was bothering Juntae on the stairs that were about to pass. Siyun could only watch Juntae being bullied by Hyo-man. Siyun suddenly hallucinated that Hyo-man started to sexually harass Juntae and Juntae tried hard to avoid and his gaze asked for help from Siyun. That made Siyun remember what happened to Byum-suk when other students bullied him. In his imagination, Siyun fought them all by stabbing them with a pen until they were scared. Hyo-man called Siyun, breaking Siyun's daydream. Hyo-man asked what Siyun was doing in front of them and just staying silent like that because it scared them. Siyun just stared at them. Hyo-man said that he heard that Siyun's cell phone was lost, so Siyun had to keep his things safe. Hyo-man asked if Siyun wanted a new cell phone because he had many cell phones. Hyo-man wants Siyun to beg him. Siyun just stays silent and then tells Hyo-man to move aside so as not to block the way. Hyo-man replies that he doesn't want to. Siyun stares straight at Hyo-man and Hyo-man returns the stare no less fiercely. Hyo-man finally gives in and lets Siyun pass. Siyun then passes and enters the classroom. Hyo-man asks his friends if they saw how Siyun's eyes bulged as if his eyes were going to pop out. Juntae can only stay silent, awkwardly watching Siyun leave. In class, Siyun falls asleep with his head buried in his arms. Juntae puts milk and bread on Siyun's desk. Siyun wakes up and looks at Juntae confused. Juntae apologizes because he didn't mean to wake Siyun. Juntae is about to leave but he turns around to explain that he acted like that because Siyun always falls asleep every lunchtime, so he gave her milk and bread so he could eat. Siyun says that he doesn't need it so Juntae can take it back. Juntae says he wants to apologize for taking his phone to give to Hyo-man but he has no other choice. Siyun stands up and is about to leave the classroom but Juntae calls him. Juntae says that a few days ago Siyun called him a coward and it made him think, so he wanted to ask how to not be a coward. Siyun asks why he asked him. Juntae says because he feels that only Siyun understands, so he begs Siyun to give him tips on not being a coward. Siyun asks if Juntae knows Newton's third law, which states that if there is no action then there is no reaction. Juntae is silent. Siyun then leaves. In the hallway, Siyun lets out a heavy sigh. Juntae is on the bus reading about Newton's third law. Juntae receives a call from the device director, who is Hyoman's subordinate. Juntae ignores the call. Hyoman and his friends are enjoying alcohol at a club. The person who called Juntae complains that Juntae is not answering their calls. He wonders if Juntae is not answering his calls, who will pay for their meal. Hyoman takes out money from his wallet and says that he will pay. His men and the women cheer happily. Hyoman then excuses himself to leave because he has business to do. Siyun, who was on her way home, saw a school student extorting money from Unjang High School students, where he went to school. The student said that if he were them, he would transfer schools so that he would not go to Unjang High School. Hyoman came and asked if Songjae was in the internet cafe. The student was confused and asked what he meant. Hyoman introduced himself that he was Choi Hyoman from Unjang High School and that he had an appointment with Songjae today to meet. The student then invited Hyoman to come in. Hyoman told the student to return the money that was taken from the Unjang High School student. Hyoman then came in. The student wondered what Hyoman was doing, whether Unjang High School would really make an alliance, but wasn't the chairman was Park Hoo-min, then why was Hyoman acting so arrogantly? Siyun watched the incident from afar. Hyoman enters the internet cafe and sees some students reporting to Songjae. The student says that he will bring the payment again next week. Songjae tells them to leave. Songjae is busy playing a game on the computer. Hyoman greets Songjae with a friendly manner. Songjae is upset because his game friends can't do well. Hyoman explains that regarding the alliance, he promised to bring 100 phones next week and usually he doesn't make mistakes, but for some reason he made a mistake lately, but he will make sure it doesn't happen again. Hyoman also says that when Park Hoo-min is finished with his suspension, he wants Songjae to take care of him so that Unjang can be in the alliance. Songjae asks next week. Hyoman nods. Songjae then allows Hyoman to bring the 100 phones next week. Two boys playing games in front of Songjae talk about Songjae, who is acting like a gangster at school. They mock Songjae and say that they would be scared if they were beaten up by a high school kid. Songjae hears that and then he approaches them and beats one of them by banging his head repeatedly on the keyboard. Songjae then smiles lopsidedly. Hyoman, who sees that, is shocked and asks Songjae that he wants to leave. After Hyoman leaves, Songjae asks what the coward's name is. Juntae sits at the bus stop. He receives a lot of messages from Hyoman and his friends that they will beat Juntae up tomorrow at school for not answering their calls. The next day, Juntae comes to school early in the morning. He walks to Hyoman's room with determination. Juntae learned from Newton's third law that for all actions, the force is the same and the reaction is in the opposite direction. Juntae uses pliers to open the lock on the cabinet containing Unjang's high school students' phones. After opening it, Juntae takes the phones and returns them to the desks of the owners of the phones while attaching a post-it note that he apologizes and tells them to check the cabinets under their desks because their phones are there. Juntae adds the note Siyun when he sticks the message on her desk and returns her phones. Siyun arrives at school. He hears people talking about how their lost phones have been returned. They wonder why Juntae did that, whether it was because Juntae was going to transfer schools. They also say that if Choi Hyoman arrives at school, Juntae will die. Siyun enters the classroom and sits down on his seat. He sees a message on the table from Juntae apologizing, telling him to check the cupboard under the table, and saying thank you. Siyun reaches into the cupboard under the table and his phone is there. Seoon sees Juntae sitting on his seat with his face buried in his folded arms. Choi Hyo-man is shocked to find out that Seo Juntae took all the phones and returned them to all the students. He then walks angrily to Seo Juntae's class. The students make way for Choi Hyo-man because Choi Hyo-man is really angry. Choi Hyo-man opens the classroom door loudly and shouts for Seo Juntae. Seoon, who is sleeping, wakes up. Choi Hyo-man asks where Seo Juntae is. Other students in the class point to Seo Juntae, who is sitting on his bench with his face buried in his folded hands. Juntae wakes up while continuing to chant in his low tone that the right action will produce the right reaction. He then takes off his glasses and eats dumplings, then puts them in his mouth with trembling hands. Juntae stands up and faces Hyo-man. Hyo-man approaches Juntae, then Juntae prepares himself in a protective stance. Hyo-man laughs seeing Juntae, so he immediately beats him up for returning people's phones. The other students cheer when they see Juntae finally fighting Hyo-man. Juntae continues to be beaten badly by Hyo-man until he bleeds. Juntae doesn't give up. Seoon sees that and he remembers Suho and past events. Hyo-man grabs a chair and is about to hit Juntae with it, but Seoon kicks the chair and says that Hyo-man is noisy. Hyo-man is confused and asks what Seoon is doing. Seoon flatly tells Hyo-man to be noisy and not to cross the line. The other students did not expect Seoon to get involved.